Greetings and welcome to the Halloween edition of the Sliders Review. And I'm here today to talk to you about So Weird Banshee. This is one of my all-time favorite episodes of So Weird. I just love banshees in general. I love the idea of like this gorgeous, like demonic looking like woman with long, sometimes long white hair or like long dark hair, wearing like a ghoulish gray dress and like flying and like screaming and letting out that wail of a scream. And it's just so like interesting and stuff. You don't see horror movies really about banshees, but it's kind of quite a shame. But anyways, so in this episode, Fee is talking about like banshees and talking about how she discovered that on her mom's side of the family they're Irish, and like how because of that she became very like fascinated by it, taking up like Irish jig step dancing lessons, whatever you call it. And but it hurt her feet and she stopped after a week. And so like hearing like tales about like banshees and hearing about tales about Ireland in general, how like there's so many like mythological creatures from there's like one like from that land, and it just really fascinates her, you know what I'm saying? Because she loves stuff like that. And so her and Jack and the mom, they're like flew over there to go visit like her grandfather and grandmother. And she's so happy to see them because like, the grandfather, the grandparents, they love Jack and Fee so much. However, sadly, Molly and her dad do not get along very well whatsoever. And so, like, we see a scene where the grandparents are in bed and they hear like a woman like scream. It's a banshee, and he wakes up. Now, legend tells that banshees um, deliver people to death, something like that. They like um, they avenge like scorned women. There's different type of tales from them, and that how like in Fee's family, the O'Shannons, there are banshees that like follow them and like waiting for them to die and all that kind of weird stuff. So that weird stuff that she's into. So like the entire time they're there, Jack and Fee, they're just having like a great time, hanging out with their grandfather. But then, like I said before, Molly, every time him and her talk, they just can't get along. And like Molly even tells her mom, she wrote her dad like a song, and because I believe it's his birthday or something. And so every time she tries to talk to him, just no matter what happens, it just she, those two cannot get along, and it's never really truly 100% like told what really happened between their relationship. It's just she does tell him that no matter what, he's never told her he's been proud of her and stuff like that. And it's to the point where she thinks he doesn't even like her, to the point where she's just gonna pack up and stay in a hotel and then just fly back home, and she just doesn't want to be there. And he always tells her like, you always run from like a fight, and I really wish they would have went more into detail about it. But part of it that we do know is just that he never complimented her. Like he's never seen like her vision, and he's talking about how like he's always stood up for her and always try to like help her out, and and things were like they weren't like easy, but he was there and he tried. And so I kind of wish in this episode they would have went more into why like those two don't get along. Now on Fee's side, her grandmother shows her a picture and tells her the tale of Fiona O'Shannon, the woman that Fiona is named after, Fiona's great grandmother. And like they're like tales of like how banshees, like I said before, are always following the O'Shannon like family members, and like And there's just something strange and unusual about the O'Shannon family, which is kind of interesting. Because as we know, there's something weird and strange going on with Fee. That she's always able to see like the paranormal and stuff. And of course, Jack, he's Mr. like skeptical. He's all like, "Ah, there's no such thing," and you people are like crazy, and stuff like that. And so, like, one day, or one night, I should say, when Molly and her dad are like getting into it, they're talking about how, like, like I said before, like how he's now competent and stuff like that. Then he sees like her song lyrics on a sheet of paper. He asks her what it is, and she's all like, "Well, why do you care? You wouldn't care anyway." But then she decides to sing it for him. And it's one of my all-time favorite songs, "The Rock." Like, this is just one of those songs that so many fans love to death. And she sings it with her heart and like joy to him. And he can't help but just to like, realize that the song is actually about him and stuff. Like when she's talking about how like the Rock of Ireland, like that's like him, um I mean, it's this on YouTube. You listen to it. I can't sing it because I can't sing. But when you listen to it, the lyrics are so profound and like just so powerful. And he never realized that she had this much like love for him and admiration and stuff like that. So in the middle of the night, Fiona, she goes and she hears like a woman screaming and stuff, and she knows it's a banshee scream. And banshees always had that really unique scream where it sounds like they're singing, but in this Irish type tone. And then when she goes in her grandparents' room, she sees the banshee and this ghost-like figure just hovering around his bed, ready to take him to the underworld and stuff. And then Fiona, she screams to wake up like her grandparent, and it startles like the banshee, and it leaves. And so with Fiona, her and Jack, they're walking in like outside at night, like kids normally do back in the olden days when they used to be cool, but nowadays you can't. And so they're talking, and of course he's being skeptical, and they separate. And then all of a sudden, Fiona sees the banshee. However, I have to point out that this banshee looks more like a ghost than it does like an actual like well I'm normally used to seeing like a person. But I'll accept it, whatever. It's still cool, however, because I love banshees. So she follows the banshee, and she when Molly's singing the song, that's when she's talking to the banshee, and she's telling the banshee straight up like she wants like the banshee to leave her grandfather alone. It's she doesn't want him to die. And so like the banshee says, it's not like up to her and everything. And she tells her like straight up, like, God, I can't remember exactly what the banshee said. Something about one lives, one dies, something like that. Um, and talking about how Fiona's different and everything. She can like sense the Shannon blood in her and stuff, and like it's all like around Fiona and how Fiona's different. But then she takes Fiona to like what looks like kind of like almost like a church or like some type of castle, and it's just a hallway, and it's a long hallway with a door at the end, and there are like candle torches everywhere. And then she opens the door, and it's like this bright light on Fiona, almost like this holier than earth type like essence. And like Fiona is screaming into the light, talking about, "I don't want you to like, take my grandfather." And she's begging this like light entity, and then but the thing can't talk to her, so it has to talk to like the banshee. And the banshee is all like, um people cannot determine whose time is it to leave or not. And so it's literally going to take him. And then so she's constantly just like screaming at the thing, talking about like, "You took my father." And how fair was that for her? She was just like a little girl and stuff. And so at some point, the essence is just kind of like, fine, what, for now, like for now, I won't take your grandfather. But sometime in the future, I will. And it listened to her pleas and her cry. And then when you hear her like pleading and crying with this entity, followed by the song of the rock, it's just so powerful and everything. And then Fiona, like the light gets a little bit brighter, and then we see her. She's no longer in that like place. She's now outside in the freezing cold, passed out. And Jack finds her, and he like rescues her and takes her back home. And when they're back home, the father, him and Molly have now reconciled like their differences and everything. And he tells her, like how like she's always welcome to come back and all this other stuff and whatever it is he was feeling before is just like that's like gone in his heart and he's learned to like accept her and stuff. It still would have been cooler to know what exactly happened between those two. But I'll take it and stuff. And this is just like just one of those like it wasn't like a big like explaining type episode. It just felt more majestic, more powerful, especially with that song. And it was just pleasant. That wasn't that spooky. Alright, well I shall talk to y'all later. Bye.